Welcome. It's August 9th, 2022. I'm Joe Weston, and we're here for our online global practice for reviving the global heart. And it's great to see you all. I wasn't here last week, so it's nice to be with you again and connect. I missed you all, and thank you for holding space for me to be able to do the work I was doing on the road. And it was beautiful work, and I'm very grateful that I get an opportunity to work with people in that way. And it's good to be back, as always. I'm so grateful for your hearts, your wisdom, your care for me, for yourselves, for one another, and Todd's beautiful facilitation, jumping in. And thank you for that, for holding space for that. Anybody got a word or two for Todd in terms of reflection on feedback on just quickly what how you felt the session was?
It was
Thank you,
inspiring.
Doug. Oh, sorry.
Well, a quality, something that you admired about it or liked or didn't like?
The connection was top.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Mm.
It really was.
Very thought-provoking.
Nice.
He's
Thank you.
allowed to come back.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cover. Great. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Okay, let's.
Todd seems blushing a little bit.
Yeah. You can't see with the beautiful sunset behind him, but yeah, it's or sunrise. Okay, let's take a breath. And I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey. I'm going to be talking about something that, well, some of you who know me well probably would not expect me to be talking about, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's about joy. And I think it's a good idea to talk about joy right now. There's so much happening in the world. There's so much that's challenging us. I mean, there's what's the word? An attraction to want to be talking about current events, certainly what happened last night and today in the United States, things that are happening in this country that has never happened in this country before. We're in uncharted territory, but I won't. Or I'll put it in the context, because a lot of this work, I say, and it's part of our practice. Our practice is to cultivate resilience and fierce compassion. Both of them, if done in an appropriate way with depth, can activate deeper levels of joy. We all have our relationship with joy, and I certainly have mine. I can say that if you were to ask me, hey, Joe, how's your relationship going with joy? I would say it's complicated. It's a very complicated relationship. I was always a very melancholic, very sorrowful little kid. I kind of am still as an adult. And as you know, I'm more wired when we talk about love being the desire to make others happy and acting on that desire, and compassion, alleviating the suffering of others and acting on that desire. I'm more wired towards the suffering part, the alleviating suffering, than necessarily the happy part. I always say I'm more of a compassion person than a love person, and I love my love people. Got to have them all. And that's just a story I tell myself in my complicated relationship with joy. I feel like I have a karmic or destiny relationship with it, because probably most of you, if not all of you, don't know. I was born with the name Jody, Jody. Now, as a little boy growing up in Queens, New York, having the name Jody, which of course is associated mostly with a girl's name, was not a pleasant name to have. However, I never saw that embedded in the name Jody is the word joy. And when I took my vows, my basic vows in Tibetan Buddhism, I was given a Tibetan name, and my Tibetan name is Sonam Kunga. And Kunga, the translation of Kunga from Tibetan to English is always joyful. So it's a bit strange that I feel like I'm being forced to be joyful. It's like, don't make me be joyful. And that's part of my complicated relationship with it. And I mean, I would love to, at some point, it would be nice for you to contemplate and think about, what does joy mean for you? But I remember couple of weeks ago when I was sharing about concentration, that we are already fully present. We don't have to become present. We have to become aware of our presence. And that in Tibetan Buddhism, the 6 perfections to become a Buddha, that the 5th perfection is concentration, and that basically all the practice is you achieve the perfection of concentration when you simply eliminate all the obscurations and causes to your to keep you from connecting to your mind, which is already totally clear. The definition of mind in Tibetan is clean and clear. That's mind, clean and clear. Everything else in mind is just something that gets you in the way of connecting to the true nature of your mind, which is clean and clear. And then the 4th perfection I mentioned was joyous effort. And I want to bring that up because in joyous effort, it's not necessarily that you, because it basically this idea of if you are committing to expanding your capacity of fierce compassion, of alleviating the suffering of others, of being able to hold more beings in your heart, like the practice we're doing, you need an appropriate amount of energy to keep you going. So joyous effort doesn't mean you always have to be happy. It simply means that you're cultivating energy, prana or chi. That literally that's what you're doing. That joy in this context is the different ways of looking at joy, in the sense of joy can be a feeling, an emotion, but from that context, joy is an energy. It's an embodied thing. You can cultivate joy. And in this practice, when I say take in the benefits of this practice, that's in a sense, you're taking in the prana, the chi, the joyful effort that you've generated in this practice. You can actually receive it in an energetic or embodied way that sustains you. It's like sustenance. It's like the sun, or it's like food, or it's like fuel in a rocket ship or a car. If we want to make it to our destination, to our final journey, which is realizing in this lifetime our highest potential, we need to also along the way make sure that we fill our tanks. It's common sense. It's not rocket science. That's to get in a rocket ship and get somewhere, you have to make sure you have enough fuel. And that's the perfection of joyous effort, is to cultivate that level of energy. And how do you do that? I mean, for those of you who have done the respectful confrontation work and know the 4 pillars of resilient power, which is grounding, focus, strength, and flexibility. Yeah, Nika's like going along, aarding, focus, kracht, and flexibiliteit. Yeah, sometimes it's that easy. That when these are exercises that you can do, and that they're designed in these exercises that the more you do them, literally, if you open up to it, you can tap into energy resources that are always available to you within yourself. And this is not, I didn't make this up. This is 5,000 years of technologies that you learn in Hindu traditions, Buddhist traditions, Chinese traditions, Taoist traditions, indigenous traditions. Even in the Christian mysticism, there's talk of being engulfed with bliss, with joy, with light in a sense, and the Jewish traditions and the Islamic traditions, that you can find that all in these teachings. That there's a way of cultivating energy that helps you achieve your goals, and that the more you do the exercises with the 4 pillars, grounding, focus, strength, and flexibility, you get to a point where if you allow yourself to just immerse yourself in the moment with those exercises, you let go of all of the things that keep you constricted, and you find a certain freedom flowing through you. And that freedom is what I would say joy is. That for those of you who remember the workshops, we'll do the elephant walking, for instance. We'll do all of these exercises, the focus, until we feel a sense of release that releases a sense of joy. And so it's not that hard to tap into joy if we have the appropriate methods and we take the time and energy to do it. Sometimes we can tap into it not, but the more we practice it, the easier it is to tap into that. And that the source of that joy in this context is freedom. Freeing yourself from all the things that are keeping you in that place. I think that's important for us to be thinking about today in this time when there's so many ways that we are constricting ourselves, so many ways that we're keeping us in a spiral of anxiety. We're doing it, external forces are doing it, and all of those, or we're taking on burdens. All of our possessions, all the things we do, relationships, worries, these are all things that burden us. And that through these practices, even just for a moment, you can release yourself of all that burden to allow energy to flow through you. And that is what I would say joy is. So joy is not only an emotional response, it's also an embodied, visceral, energetic response. It's also a mental response. It's also, you can have a joyful mental experience that transcends the body, that transcends the feelings. And that, for many of you know, especially if you are involved with mindfulness and Thich Nhat Hanh and other traditions of the four immeasurables, that's what we call them in Tibetan. And I'm bringing that up just as a reference that the first one is, may all beings find happiness in the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. The fourth one, because I'll get to the third one, is may all beings find equanimity, free from attachment to some and aversion to others. That's the mental state of equanimity where you're in balance, where you're not reaching and craving for attachments. You're not have aversion to things that turn you off or you find repulsive, and you're not indifferent to things that don't register. So we're, in a sense, every week when we do this, or every day, since I'm sure you're doing this practice every day, when you're doing this practice, you're cultivating equanimity because you're letting go of the aversion to adversaries, the indifference to strangers, and the attachment to loved ones to come to an equal sense of compassion and love for all of them, in a sense. But the third one, which is, it's may all beings have happiness, cause may all beings find the happiness that knows no suffering. May all beings find the happiness that knows no suffering. And that to me is the first one's the immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable equanimity, immeasurable joy. That in the Tibetan traditions and Buddhist traditions and probably the Hindu traditions, you cultivate a state of mind that transcends physical joy, physical pleasure. That's a mental bliss state. It transcends suffering, it transcends even pleasure and bodily joy in a sense. It's a mental state of clarity, of freedom, of precision. Sort of the quality I feel of it is it's exquisite. There's a sort of exquisite beauty to it. That's a mental state. So in a sense, joy, it can be a mental state, it can be an emotional state, and it can be a physical state. So I'm throwing out a lot of things is that we can cultivate this. And I emphasize it mostly because I want to connect it with our practice. When we cultivate resilience and fierce compassion in this practice, we're cultivating physical joy, in a sense, freedom, physical freedom, which leads to joy, emotional freedom, which leads to joy, mental freedom, which leads to joy. Or you could say that you're doing this practice to generate a physical state of joy, which leads to freedom, an emotional state of joy, which leads to freedom, and a mental state of joy, which leads to freedom. And when we can find that level of freedom, if we can move through the world in that way, then all of the challenges that come our way won't stick. It won't throw us off because we're cultivating the power of that. And that to me is the fourth perfection of Buddhism, in Buddhism, to become a Buddha, which is joyful effort. It's cultivating within ourselves that physical, emotional, and mental state of being that transcends suffering, that transcends conflict, that transcends worry, that transcends anxiety. And I want to, if I may, tie it all together, because where I have this kind of like summarizes my relationship with, as I said, my complicated relationship with joy is because I tend to have also a pretty, as I said, easeful relationship with melancholy and sorrow. That just seems to be where I'm wired. And I'm very grateful for the teaching by Khalil Gibran. Do you know Khalil Gibran? I actually have a book here, brings tears to my eyes, that I got this as a little baby, this of the Prophet. So it's only about 25 years old. Just kidding. And that's, I got to share it. That's also a piece of complication with my name. So I'll say really, no, I'm not, I'll say it because I've already started. My middle name is Robert. And to show you the complication of my name, Jody, right? Like a boy growing up in Queens with the name Jody. Robert was named, I was named after the son of my mother's boss. My mother had this beautiful, loving relationship with her boss where she worked. And her son at 18 years old died in a motorcycle accident. And I was named after him. So my middle name is named after a young man who died in a motorcycle. And it says in here, to you in memory of Bob. And I'd like to read what Khalil Gibran says about sorrow and joy. Some of you may know it, but I just want to leave with that. I'll adjust my eyes, 1 second. Then a woman said, speak to us of joy and sorrow. And he answered, your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. How else can it be? This is the line that I've been with me all my life. The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. The deeper the joy carves into your container, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart and you shall see that in truth, you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily, you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and joy. Only when you are empty are you at standstill and balanced. What the treasure keeper lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall. Only when you are empty are you at standstill and balanced. And from that state, that's what we're cultivating, is that sense of balance, presence, awareness, balance, and flow. And from that state, if you allow it, joy can naturally rise. So thank you for my little story, sharing my complicated relationship with joy. I hope you can take that with you and would love to discuss more at some point. I'd like to see how we can integrate this into our practice. This idea, I love that, the idea of scales, that the relationship between that right, if you are feeling sorrow, that somewhere very close joy is lurking. And it's just a question of when you restore yourself to balance and stillness, you create that opening for joy to flow. All right, so sitting in a way where your spine is straight, without being rigid. Creating space in your vertebrae, allowing for what we call resilience, presence, awareness, balance, and flow. Relaxing your jaw, relax your shoulders, relax your belly. Notice if you're clenching in your lower back to hold you up, and see if you can, instead of clenching, if you could find a way to just, in a sense, find that more balance, alignment where you're just holding yourself up as a sense, opposed to clenching yourself. Bring your attention to your core and your lower belly, with the 3 fingers below your navel, a third of the way into the body. Personal power, awareness, battery source and energy source. Checking in physically, emotionally, and mentally how charged your battery is. Imagining now that what your battery gets charged with is the energetics of joy. Prana, chi. From your center, become aware of your contact points, the parts of your body that are connecting with what you're sitting on. Ground. Using this moment to allow your body, your nervous system to help you to just drop and let yourself be held. Building a relationship with Mother Earth, with what's beneath you. As you surrender into that, feeling the joy that comes with that. How can our relationship be anything otherwise than joyful with Mother Earth? From your center, become aware of your physical body. Imagining all the sensations you feel if you let go of this idea of positive or negative sensations, and take them all in as experience, as energy. Can they all on some level have a certain degree of joy flowing through them? Even the pain. Every heartbeat is a beat of joy. Every breath, full expression of joy. Fluids flowing through your body, joy flowing through you. Even tension. From your center, become aware of your emotional body. Which emotions are you aware of? You can label them or assess them, but if you take away the judgment of them, how are they all in some level, some kind of reflection to joy? Or in relationship to joy? From your center, become aware of your mental body. Assessing and observing the thoughts that are flowing. And almost see if you can see behind those thoughts that may be constant equanimity or freedom of a joyful experience, bliss. Remaining connected with your core, your center of personal power, energetic joy. Bringing your awareness now to your heart. In the middle of your chest where your heart power resides. Compassion, love, joy. Highest levels of joy. Equanimity. From your center and from your heart, connecting with that part of you which has access to something larger than yourself. And considering that that part of you is nothing but joy, or a state of joy. And from that part of you now connecting with something larger than yourself in this moment. How can that be anything but joyful? And I'm bursting with this awareness and energetic experience of joy, allowing that to flow like just oozing out to the boundaries of your personal space, filling your personal space with this energetic. Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. Anchoring this physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as a state of being that you have access to, state of joy. With this awareness from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. Maintaining this level of connection to yourself in this moment from your center and your heart, activated with this energy, becoming aware of your surroundings in all directions. No need to look, just build relationship with your awareness and your presence. Cultivating more balance and flow with your surroundings. Seeing if that adds to your state of joy, diminishes, enhances, creates a new color. With that awareness of self and surroundings from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. And from your center and from your heart, with more an awareness of yourself and your surroundings, from your center and from your heart, become aware of those in this meditation circle, sharing in this practice. Various parts of Europe, North America, perhaps other parts of the world. And as you connect from your center and from your heart, feeling that abundance of joy, just letting that flow towards those in this, you're sharing the space within this meditation circle, and be free to open and receive what comes back to you. Knowing that this is unlimited, there's no limit to this. Share gracefully and generously with your joy. Receive generously and gracefully. With this awareness of self, surroundings, and others from in this meditation circle from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. Feeling the benefits of now having aligned our energy with one another, creating more stability and strength perhaps. From your center and from your heart, now opening to all human beings. First beginning with those human beings you would label loved ones. And as always, who arises in your heart? What faces do you see? Standing face to face or sitting face to face. This idea of sharing generously, knowing that you cannot be depleted as you're connecting with Mother Earth and that which is larger than yourself. Allow that to flow and to receive their joy back. And imagining the obstacles along the way with loved ones that might keep from this flow of joy to just be flowing, peaceful. Notice these obscurations, these obstacles, mostly just stories. Allow the joy to actually flow into them. What would it take to create that flow state with those you are now connecting with, free of these obstacles? And from your center and from your heart, become aware of those human beings you would label stranger, and who arises in your heart. What faces do you see? How many do you see? Considering the same thing, allowing from you, from your center and your heart, this state of joy to flow towards them, allowing them to receive that. Their sense of flow, of joy flowing back towards you, receiving that. Noticing the obscurations or obstacles in the way of this flow. Indifference, hesitation, suspicion. Allowing this flow, this wave of joy to just flow and maybe soften it, dilute it. And from your center and from your heart, becoming aware of those human beings you would label adversary. Who arises in your heart? What faces do you see? Seeing what is possible in this moment, knowing that your joy is abundant, to allow it to flow through you towards these beings, awakening in them a deeper level of freedom and bliss and joy. And as their joy flows back towards you, are you able to receive that? Noticing all the obscurations and obstacles that keep this state of joy to be flowing. How much of this flow that you're now feeling of this energy can dissolve it, break it up, soften it. And with this awareness of all human beings in your heart in this state of flowing joy, joyful flow, imagine that just radiating out from all of us to touch every being on this planet. Imbuing them with a sense of freedom and joy. Seeping into Mother Earth, into all aspects of Mother Earth herself. The earth, the waters, the mountains, the valleys, rivers, ozone layer. Right to a core. And with this awareness, this full awareness of connection from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. Feeling that resolution, that being resolute in your heart of this that we have created, allowing now all human beings to flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to those in this meditation circle. Sharing with each other an appreciation for our joyful effort in this practice. Allowing those in this meditation circle to flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to your surroundings, anchoring yourself in the here and now. Allowing the surroundings to flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to yourself. Becoming aware of yourself and allowing this flow state to flow into all aspects of who you are, recognizing where there might be obscurations and obstacles that keep you from fully connecting and integrating with all aspects of yourself. Joyful dance of sorrow, the sorrowful dance of joy. Finding that balance and stillness. Allowing all of this energy nervous system with a sense of physical, emotional, and mental bliss, joy. allowing this to flow into your, if there's still room in your battery, allowing this to flow into your battery, filling your battery with joyful energy. And as a way to close this practice, let's take one final breath. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Look around the room, stretch your body, shake your body. Todd asserts that my joy momentarily paralyzed the internet. I'd like to believe I'm that powerful. I think it was us. I think it was us, our shared resources. We did a glitch. What we did was actually, it wasn't a paralyzation. It paralyzed. It was a reset. How about that?
I like that.
Okay. So we
First, I
reset.
thought it was just my internet, and then I opened my eyes and everybody else was looking at the screen and Joe was frozen.
Okay. That was a moment, yeah, that transcended the World Wide Web. How's that? So thank you for allowing me to share about my complicated relationship, and want to check in. We've done, we started with our motivation. We did our practice. Anybody want to share how that talk was for you, how the practice was, your thoughts on joy? Jean says the closest I can get to joy is gratitude. That ain't bad. Not sorry to use words like good and bad, but that's a beautiful, there's a lot of wisdom in that, Jean. Thank you. So that on some level, how I interpret that is that our way to joy is gratitude.
Joe, I wonder what moved you to talk about this today.
I just been really concerned about what's happening on this planet and all the events, and how we're worn out. And also because I remember the last time we spoke, I did bring up the 6 perfections, and I brought up joyful effort. And then it just I just had a little moment in my memory, like, let's come back to that. And for me to explain more about what joy means to me, that it's not just a sort of emotional happiness, that it ties into our practice. Thank you for asking. Why do you think that I brought this up? Did you have any, Ophelia, do you have any ideas?
No, but I'm so happy you did.
Why?
Because it resonates much more with me than the other aspect. The always, you call it melancholic. I would say it was almost complaining, or almost resonating with the bad. And I am on the other side of the spectrum completely. So for me, sometimes it was hard to keep listening and keep absorbing and being with it. So
You mean you mean our practice, or just
Yeah.
life? The practice.
it was too intense in terms of negativity sometimes, because I am an extreme. But I thought that this practice you had last week, that you weren't here and you were somewhere else doing something else, brought some ideas about joy that you brought today to us, I thought.
Yeah, could be. I was I was at the ocean. I was in a beautiful environment, so a lot of nature, and that certainly could help. Thank you. Anybody else?
On that question of why, one of the things I cherish about this time is what we talk about. It always seems to be, what it's time for now, for me personally. And the timing, the connection, the intent, the discussion always seems to just really resonate. And so I think that it's very true today. It's what it's time for now. You have an uncanny ability to do that. And it's great to share this all with you.
Thank you. Why is it for you? Do you mind just really quickly? Can you just say why for you now? What is it about now that this talk was helpful?
So many things on the plate, so many things to juggle. Great things to be involved with, activism wise, and yet part of being able to engage for the long term is finding those respites, finding, I think, those elements of joy. And I lost it this weekend, frankly. Lost my resilience and had a bad day yesterday with my client. And so that's why it's time now.
Thank you. Eliza?
I appreciated the emphasis from Gilal Gibran about joyful sorrow and sorrowful joy, because it reminded me, I'm doing Tai Chi these days, and it reminded me of the yin and the yang and how there's always balance. And you can't be only joyful and joyful all the time. And that's the goal. We do have sorrow, and sorrow, they're both part of life. And right now I'm grieving the loss of my mother. And it's just part of my life. And yet I can still have joy too and hold both. I get to hold both. So in that sense, my heart needs to grow and to be more expanding during this time. And it's good to be with you all anyway. So thank you.
Thank you, Eliza.
Ciao, Joe.
Ciao.
I intended to be in the meeting from the beginning, but I was caught, I was drawn away, how do you say, I distracted by trying to respond to a mail as sharply and aggressive as possible. Then I realized that that was exactly the thing that I was not supposed to do, but it was already late. But it's funny, you have the superpowers because I could catch on with the prophet stuff. I realized that when you talk of joy, you are joy. And I love the practice. And I think that when this time is over, I'm going to rewrite completely the mail. And the temperature is slower of some degrees. So you've got to have the superpowers for sure.
Thank you. I love the way you see me. I love being seen by you and the way you see me. Thank you. And I'm grateful for you in my life. You crazy man.
You are crazy too, huh? Don't forget.
Okay. Takes one to know one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cheryl. It's nice to see your name. It's good to have you join us.
Glad to be back.
Good.
Good to
Great.
see you too.
Nice. Great. Okay, so we started with our motivation. We did our practice. We had a time to reflect. Let's dedicate this energy now. Let's dedicate this energy to all beings on this planet and to all human beings, that they find their way back to joy, or some sense of what that is. Particularly want to send some loving energy to the people of Gaza, my friends and colleagues that I know there and their families. May they be well, safe, and taking care of one another in these challenging times. The people of Ukraine and other war zones and areas where there's conflict. May they find their way back to themselves and support some sense of light and solace. And may all beings on this planet have enough fresh water to drink and food to eat. And may all governments and world leaders govern from a place of true joy and compassion, as opposed to greed and fear. Okay, all, thank you. Good to see you. Stay cool, stay joyful, and see you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.